Duck had had a rough trip. The cars had done nothing but cause trouble the entire way. He was relieved when he finally arrived at the transfer station, and very tired. "You look tired, Duck," said Rusty. "Had a rough day?" "Very," said Duck. "It's these stupid cars that are the problem." "I understand," said Duke. "At least now I'll be able to have a short rest before my next job." Just then Sir Handel bustled in with some empty freight cars. "You're lucky you get a rest at all, Duck," he said. "I get no rest. First I have to run over to the Blue Mountain Quarry and collect way too many trucks of rock, take them all to the wharf, and then I have to go work at the slate mines and take the empty trucks back here for Duncan, all without even 5 minutes rest." Just then Duke got that all-too-familiar twinkle in his eye. "You know," he said, "I remember there was one time when you complained of too little work, Sir Handel," he said. Sir Handel blushed and looked away. "I don't know what you're talking about, Duke," he said. Rusty frowned. "I believe," he said, "you should have said, 'I don't know what it is about which you are talking.' I hate it when people end sentences with prepositions." "Prepo what nows?" said Sir Handel. Duke ignored the conversation about prepositions. "Surely," he said, "you remember this incident, Falcon," he said. "Is this going to lead into another story?" said Rusty. "Oh yes," said Duke. "This is one of my favorites." Sir Handel grimaced. "Well," he said, "if you're going to tell that silly old story, I'm certainly not going to stay around and hear it." With that, he uncoupled from his freight cars and hurried away. "Well," laughed Duck, "even if Sir Handel doesn't want to hear your story, I certainly would like to. It sounds quite entertaining." "Yes," said Rusty, "please tell the story. We've got time." Duke smiled. "Well," he said, "as you've probably guessed, it happened a long time ago." "In fact," said Duke, "this was a very, 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 very long time ago. It was back when I still worked on the Mid-Sodor Railway. At the time, the railway only had one other engine besides me. So our railway manager decided we needed another. In fact, the manager bought 2 new engines. One was built before the other, though. His name was Stuart. This was Peter Sam, of course, before his name was changed. All 3 of us worked very well together. We got all of our jobs done on time. We were doing so well, in fact, that the manager thought that the other engine he had ordered might not even be necessary. But it was too late. He had already placed the order. It turned out that the manager had been right. The new engine, of course, was Falcon, now known as Sir Handel. But as I said, the manager's prediction turned out to be true. There was no need for a 4th engine, as the other 3 of us were working so well that there were no jobs for him to do. At first, Falcon enjoyed this, but soon he grew bored. "There's nothing to do around here," he said. "All I do is sit in this shed and watch the grass grow, the paint dry." Our manager was a good man, but he wasn't the brightest bulb on the chandelier, so he never would have considered letting Falcon work part-time and another engine also work part-time so that they could share jobs. But one day, one of our engines fell ill. He had to be sent to the mainland to get parts, but while he was there, he was bought and never returned to the Mid-Sodor Railway. It's a pity. I don't even remember his name now, and I'm sure that Peter Sam and Sir Handel won't either. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After the engine left for the mainland, the manager decided to let Falcon help Stuart and I, as 2 engines could not easily manage all of the jobs on a railway. "Hooray, hooray," said Falcon when he heard the news. "I finally get to go out on the line." Falcon worked hard, but he had not been out on the line for a long time, so many of his parts were stiff, and he often got cramps. Then, just as Falcon reached the bridge, it happened. Something inside of him snapped. Suddenly he was rocking back and forth along the track. "Ah! "Ah! Ah!" he cried. "What's happening?" Before he knew it, Falcon was off the track and hanging from the roof of a tunnel. "Ooh!" groaned Falcon. He was still disoriented from being rocked from side to side, and hanging front side down from a tunnel did not help. The rescue operation was extremely difficult. One man climbed on top of the tunnel. Another stood on the track. While I pulled from behind, the men up front occasionally made adjustments to the position of both Falcon and his front car. Sometimes they would tell me to stop, or move slowly, or move quickly. At last Falcon was on top of the tunnel. With a few more adjustments, he was partially on the rails. A few minutes later, he was back on the track. Falcon sighed with relief. He had not enjoyed the experience at all. While I took away Falcon's cars, Stuart brought Falcon to the repair shed. Falcon's repairs did not take long, as his condition was not nearly as bad as that of the engine that had to be sent to the mainland. That night, Falcon slunk back to the sheds, hoping nobody else would be there. But Stuart and I had beaten him. Stuart teased him about it endlessly. I couldn't help smiling sometimes. But poor Falcon was never able to live it down. "So it would seem," grinned Duck. "Thank you for telling the story, Duke," said Rusty. "Although I do kind of feel sorry for Sir Handel." "I suppose I do too," said Duke. "But you know what they say." But before Duke could say what they say, they all heard a familiar whistle. "It's Peter Sam! He's back!" said Rusty. And indeed it was. Peter Sam looked splendid. He had gone to the works after an explosion had occurred on his train and had damaged him heavily, and now he was back with an entirely new look. "Hello, everybody," said Peter Sam. "It's so nice to see you again." Peter Sam's friends greeted him warmly. "Welcome back," they all said. "It sure feels good to be home," said Peter Sam. "So tell me, what's new?" Before any of them could reply, in puffed Skarloey. "I just came from the sheds," said Skarloey. "Sir Handel's there, not doing anything but sulking. I do wish he'd do some work for a change." Peter Sam sighed, but the other three engines could only smile.